All right, quick note before we begin. Item number 1 will take place after our roll call tonight. Time is 7:31. I'll call this meeting of the Yardley Borough Council to order. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Begin with our roll call.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Ms. Siegel Morris?
Here.
Mr. Curtin?
Present.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Thompson?
Present.
Mr. Bria?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. With 7 members present, we have a quorum. The record reflected Mayor Harding is absent tonight. You may all have noticed there is something unusual on your agenda tonight, which is reorganization of council. This is something we usually do at the January following an election. However, it's something that we can do at any time. And the reason it is on agenda tonight is that I have decided to step away from the role of council president. I'm not leaving council. I'm just stepping away from the leadership role. And that's really because I think it's in the best interest, both personally and for the borough. I'm finding the time commitment a little bit difficult to keep up with, balancing that with work life, personal life, all the other great things going on. So I thank everybody for what was a little more than 2 years. It's been fun. And my last order of business, if there are no objections to this procedure, I will preside over the nomination and election of a new council president. Once that vote is complete, I will hand off the gavel. So with that, I will ask at this time for nominations for the office of Yardley Borough Council President.
I nominate Caroline Thompson.
I second that.
All right, we don't need a second for nominations.
Sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further? Hearing none, nominations for the office of council president are closed. Upon the nomination of Caroline Thompson for Borough Council President, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. Congratulations, Madam President. A very ceremonial switching of the seats.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I am Dee Bria. And I would just like to give a heartfelt thank you to David for all of the hours that are not seen by the community. Night, day, weekends, the sheer number of emails you've responded to, all you've done for this town. I feel like you really brought civility back to this board and you've put us on the map, and I've learned so much from you, and I'm very grateful, so thank you so much for everything. Okay, so I will open nominations for Vice President of Council.
I'd like to make a nomination for Kim Siegel Morris.
Thank you. We have a nomination for Kim Siegel Morris. Are there any other nominations for Vice President? Any other nominations? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of Kim Siegel Morris's nomination to Vice President, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. And finally, I would like for us to fill the position of President Pro Tem, which is a position we have not filled in some time. In the event that the President and Vice President are not available, the President Pro Tem will preside over the meeting. They would also be involved in leadership conversations with the borough manager and solicitor. Do I hear nominations for the position of President Pro Tem?
I'll nominate Matt Ross.
Any other nominations? Does anybody want to be nominated but doesn't want to nominate themselves?
Matthew, you don't want to do it?
No, I'll do it. It's fine.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of Matt Ross as President Pro Tem, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. All right, let's move on into our agenda. We'll start with community announcements. I have one, just a reminder that the lake cleanup day at Lake Afton is this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a great opportunity. They have a job for everyone. Bring your own tools if you have them, and we'll see you at the lake. Does anybody have any other announcements? From council first? Any community announcements from the public? All right, we'll move on to public comment. Members of the public wishing to make comment, please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Cellini.
Albert Cellini, 18 Van Horn Avenue, Yardley Borough. Congratulations to the new council president.
Thank you.
Plato said that public service done well is the noblest of deeds, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Right. I come here, hopefully not to use the full 3 minutes, but I've sent numerous emails, some with pictures and videos. They're probably clogging your email inboxes to Mr. Curtin, Ms. Thompson. And as I sit looking out my window, as I work from home now, and I still see the hillside in the back of my house unplanted and a new ravine being carved into the hillside, which will threaten more trees and create stream bank environmental damage. Especially we saw this from last night's storm. We saw the remnants of it today. I saw on the agenda that there is no borough engineer's report, so I'm asking for a status report on of remediation to our property, to my property and my neighbor's property. And I'm sorry to be a pest here, but we have to do this. I have not gotten any email responses onto timing or remediation and planting, so if someone can.
Yes, we discussed this in Public Works. Mr. Foley, would you provide an update, please?
Yes, regarding the landscaping, the applicant provided a concept plan. As of this time, we've spoken to them, and right now it's unsatisfactory for that proposed planting. We want additional planting, a variety of the widths to that, and we're also looking for additional buffer, for, maybe additional fencing, and let them come back to us on that for the landscaping. So we'll forward our review to him so that that can move forward on the embankment. And I hope that your council has shared your review with them as well. If you have any comments on that.
So we have seen the plan
Right.
and view it as acceptable. The Leland cypresses will grow tall and provide some blockages. The whips will take 50 years to grow. We won't be around to see it, right? So, that's we have no problem with that. And if there's additional plantings, Patrick, I welcome them, and varietal will be okay.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Good. And so regarding the second item is the discharge point, is we have notified ML7 of your concerns and requested them to review and address those items. And we did that on the 7th, as well as we followed up today based upon me receiving your email. And I did have a conversation with ML7, with Tyler, and he was coordinating with his engineer, and they were going to follow up with us on a response. Tomorrow I'll be sending an email to him and asking us to provide us with a response to addressing this new issue within 48 hours, at least providing us with a response to it so we can move this forward and put this behind us. So we are following this up, Mr. Salinas.
So what do they anticipate their timeline for?
That's what I'm working on, and I've requested him to send me an email, on turning, getting back to us so we could forward, resolve this issued.
Patrick has the Bucks County Environmental Authority's been, Richard Crassel, been advised of the continued deterioration of the stream bank.
Yes, I did speak to Mr. Crassel, and I believe you've included him on your emails. So what he is saying at this point, when I spoke to him today, is he was looking at a short-term solution. A solution right now is to put additional stone along that embankment. Okay, is what, when I was asking him on his thoughts to try to mitigate the erosion on that area. And so that's what I've received from him from a phone call today.
And Mr. Foley did respond that the residents would likely not approve of that plan to add more stone to the embankment.
It's a near-term solution,
Correct.
and if it's part of a longer-term one, I'll accept it as an interim one, because right now there is damage and trees will come down. And there is a very abrupt finish to where they did their activity. It just, they stopped and actually tried to cover the end of the ditch that was being created with some limbs. So it's not acceptable. Did Mr. Crassett talk about potentially levying additional fines to ML7?
From that aspect, I did not ask him that question. I could reach back out to him tomorrow and follow up with him on
And to
that.
council members, understand that if ML7, its principals are all good people, I understand that they're probably not happy to do this, but it irreparably damaged mine and my neighbors' properties here and created stream bank erosion that will hurt all those downstream from the creek, right? So these guys, they have to be held accountable here, and if additional fines are required to get them moving, I expect the borough and the solicitor to take all steps necessary to be responsible to us as citizens, as taxpayers. They have to be fined. You have to establish timelines for them to be accountable to. Because right now, I see the nodding heads of support, and I know you all mean well, but we are not seeing action at the pace necessary to fix this. And every storm creates more damage. That's going to be more of a problem. So I'll message Mr. Grassett, but it needs to be from the borough president, from the solicitor, to reinforce these points, and the borough engineer to say, look, plan has to be, steps have to be taken, interim steps have to be taken, and fines levied if they do not move within commercially reasonable time. That's all I ask of you here, right?
So I think legally, we did feel that they were still within a reasonable response period to our most recent back and forth with the reviews, and, we're somewhat limited on our legal recourse at this time for more fines, correct, Mr.
If
Clausen?
you guys want to throw a stone at these guys, you can. I know it's limited, but you have to send a message to all of the corporate stakeholders in our community, as well as the individual ones who do things improperly without permits that impact other people's property. You have to make a message. I implore you to. I'm not trying to be unreasonable here. All right. We're going to continue. I look forward to, Patrick, I think we're all aligned here on what we want. The long-term solution has to be a drainage burrow that goes the length of the ML7 property that goes down to where the existing drainage point is into the creek. That's the long-term solution. You have to make a canal. That's what was there before, and it has been overgrown and damaged. So that's the long-term solution. They just have to make a new road that goes all the way down to the end. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yes, Mr. Woodruff?
Thanks. So, and after everyone else's point, so just understanding in terms of that legal recourse and timeline, you said they were within their limit. Just so we understand, there are multiple legal recourse paths here. So the boroughs is what, and what is that timeline?
So our typical pattern has been we allow them 2 weeks to review any responses that we send to their reports. And since our site visit where we were all there together, there's been 3 exchanges back and forth with them submitting plans and us submitting responses and then coming back. So unfortunately, reasonable response can drag this out. I have instructed Mr. Foley to return to Tyler instead of waiting for them to propose when they'll complete the next steps of remediation, to say we expect the updated plan within 48 hours. So as we did last time, for him to offer deadlines rather than waiting for them to provide them.
Appreciate that, and to Al's point, I think where I'm stuck in the process, and this is my own ignorance, is if nothing happens within 48 hours, then what? I'm just used to a business world where that, there's a timeline, and if that doesn't happen, there's a consequence. And from what I'm hearing from Patrick, if that's not clear, what is necessarily compelling them to respond if the sort of recourse is nothing but more time? I'm just trying to understand process.
And it depends, right, on what their response is. If it's whether it's too wet to go to bring trucks in and remediate, then that's reasonable. If their response is, I haven't been able to get a hold of our contractor, that's unreasonable. And so far, it has all been weather or seasonal related delays. But we have kind of looked into what the next step in fines would be, and there's not a lot.
Ultimately, additional fines can be levied, and beyond that, court action can ensue. But, I don't think that process is, we haven't gotten to that point.
Right, I think there's different perspectives on if we've gotten to that point. And I guess my question is, understanding that, so after that 48 hours, the fine is what? The fine, again, I'm just trying to...
I can't get into specifics on that. There could be additional fines from the county. Conceivably, the borough has the authority to impose fines. But again, that, would require some analysis and a determination by the borough and or the county.
But, right, so in terms of if ML7 does not comply within reasonable timeframes, again, I'm just trying to understand.
I know you want specifics, but we can't give
So
you
who
specifics.
can give specifics? I guess that's where is the accountability here, and how do we get to a place where not only do we have a timeline, but we understand specifically what happens if the timeline is not met?
Right.
Because every 2 weeks or we're showing up here, we're having what feels to me the same conversation. So I'm trying to get to a place where if this does not happen, then this triggers this action. And again, given that there are different legal perspectives, we're trying to understand the borough's perspective so that we can formulate our own.
Yes. Well, all I can tell you is the borough has some legal options it can pursue if things break down and it doesn't proceed in a proper fashion, in a timely fashion. And also the county's involved, and they also have remedies available. That's all I can tell you at this time.
Mr. Closter, could you give us a ballpark estimate of what your firm looking into that might cost?
Well, it would be many, many thousands of dollars, probably in the tens of $20,000 range, to bring an action against them and pursue it, at least initially, to try to enforce some sort of remedy. It's not an inexpensive thing. Certainly the borough could probably cover it if need be. But again, the county actually has additional remedies. They've already issued fines in this matter. They could do so again.
Do we know the total of those fines? Just, I don't.
20,000?
I don't know either.
One $20,000 fine is an
Correct.
One $20,000.
$20,000 one time, and then there is a period of time at which they can do it again. I don't know what that is,
Right,
but
that's
I
right.
no, I understand. I understand your point. I did look into that one time and kind of didn't get the answer and kind of moved on from it. But they've done it once, to what I can tell,
Right.
and there is some availability time in which they can come back. And I
So
don't-
so from ML7's perspective, this has been a $20,000 problem over the course of 12 months, 18 months, whatever it's been. right?
Cost them more to do the remediation. But they're getting, I'm sure there's lawsuits to their vendors that have misperformed.
So I'm
The best result would be
I
for them to,
apologize.
You're okay.
the best result would be for them to correct the problem. That would be the most timely way to do it. If the borough and or the county is forced to bring this to litigation, who knows how long it's going to take.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So
There's
that's-
further, and then there's further damage and it gets messy.
Right.
I think no one wants that.
Right.
But I hope you understand from the residents' perspective, at a certain point, we don't have any other options. right? We don't. We're simply showing up here and having the same conversation while our property gets further devalued, so.
Thank you. So in terms of action items, you'll hear from me by the end of the week on how the 48-hour follow-up goes. I'll have Public Works look into the potential fines from the county. We'll report on that at our next meeting.
Thank you.
But I can assure you that there are dozens and dozens of emails and phone calls going back and forth, and we are putting pressure on, and I continue to be in contact, and Mr. Foley continues to be in contact.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Any other public comment this evening?
I'm sorry, but
Oh.
I do want to say something. Before you go on, somebody else is going to talk about another issue.
Sure.
I'm Janet Savini, and we have a unique perspective in the sense that when there's rain that comes down, we can see exactly what's happening. And I've seen, I think it's Tom Harris in your office, I've seen him come and taking photos, and because we work out of our home now. So I've seen him come and taking photos, but the last two rainstorms were in the middle of the night, but I was unable for whatever reason to send a video of what happened on April 7th during a rainstorm. And it really looks like a man-made tributary to the Silver Creek stream coming down the hillside. So I just wanted to, I don't know if there's any opportunity, if anyone is interested, possibly you, Patrick, if I can show you after the meeting, just to see what we're talking about. And we're not just here complaining, we really do appreciate certainly that something was done, even if our hillside is not going to be what it ever was before. But I just wanted to share that with you, that I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to show you and possibly Paula, anybody on the board, if you're interested in seeing it. I just couldn't send it.
And Mr. Foley did visit the site today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, but you have to really see it during the day, during the heavy rainstorms, to see
Right.
really what's going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Urbina?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Frederick Rubina, 35 South Main Street. I have two things I want to bring up with council today. One is an item that I've been in communication with Paula. There's an additional exit sign that was installed at the shopping center. And it's causing some issues with our customers because we share that property line. So customers are kind of pulling in and then they're stopping because they see this new sign. And quite a few times there's been, honking, almost accidents because there's confusion there. So I just want to follow up on that.
I did contact the property owner, and I told him there was confusion. He was having his man look at it. We don't regulate directional signs inside private parking lots. I did check with the chief on it as well, so it's not something we can make him take out. I understand the confusion. It would be easier if he would just move it on the other side, which I suggested, but obviously it hasn't happened yet.
All right. Well,
What is the issue? 'Cause I'm familiar with the lot and your
Yeah.
property. Where did you put this?
So when you're exiting the shopping center,
Yep.
that same driveway is right next to our entrance.
Yep.
So cars that are normally pulling into us, they see this new exit sign, says exit only.
They can't turn into yours.
So-
I would think they can't turn into
They
yours.
think they can't turn into our driveway, so they stop or they pull back out and it's creating an issue there. And I understand that it's his private property, but, it's causing an issue on that street. I foresee an accident there. If it wasn't an issue, I wouldn't be here. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Nicole and I met with Paula, Mark, Sorson, and Wes, and they brought up the fence that we installed in the back. So the issue there is that we were given Obviously, the fence is there, we got the permit, and Mark Sarson issued that. And I don't know how many months ago that was, but it was months ago. And so in this meeting, Wes brought up that there's now a problem with the fence, that the egress there is not sufficient. And that was something that Mark and I discussed, because initially, we brought the fence into the building. So if you can imagine, it comes down, and then we kind of connected it on the drawing. He said, no, you have to remove that so that there's an egress. So we did that and installed the fence. So now, Wes said that that space isn't large enough, so we have to create an egress. How do we do that? Obviously, we can't move the fence because of our neighbors on each side. The only other way would be to put a gate in, right? Or a door of some sort. So, you know, the reason that I'm bringing this to your attention is because I'm sure everyone's aware of the spite situation that's occurring on our property lines. So we would like to put an exit gate there. And if at some point our neighbor puts another fence in, blocking that in, which I'm assuming you're gonna say, well, that's his private property, and blah, blah, blah. You know, there's a reason he doesn't have a fence there now, because our fence is there. So if he puts another one up to block us, it's pretty transparent why. That's what I just want to bring to your attention.
Thank you. We did play that out, that could happen down the road. First of all, your fence being approved. Initially, it was approved not as an outdoor dining area. That's the reason with the egress issues now, correct, Wes? And with the second issue, that's textbook hardship, zoning hearing board variance if somebody boxes in your egress. So that would be your route forward. But we did discuss all of those things before the meeting happened with you and borough staff.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, no problem. I have a question.
Sure.
If the scenario was that that was his fence and he created a non-egress for us, how would that play out?
I'm not sure I follow.
Let's say that that's an approved dining situation, we don't have a fence, but he puts a fence up now, we don't have an egress. How would the borough handle it?
I assume the same way, but I would need to look into the specifics and look into the code as would our staff. I can't answer that question off the top of my head.
Okay, you know what I'm saying
I follow, yeah.
then? Okay. All right, cool.
Thank you, Mr. Urbino.
You're
Any
welcome.
other public comment?
Thank you.
All right, closing public comment. We'll move on to consideration of the consent agenda dated April 19th, 2022, which includes approval of minutes dated April 5th, 2022, the bills list dated April 19th, 2022, event permit for Yardley Beer and Wine Fest on October 15th, certificate of appropriateness 22-07 9 South Main Street for a sign, and 22-08 195 South Canal Street for a fence. Does anyone wish to remove any item from consideration? Hearing no opposition, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying, oh, can I get a motion? Thank you, former president.
Sorry.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Bria, seconded by Mr. Ross. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain from item A only.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously with the exception of item A. Moving on, police chief's report, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I only have one item to report on tonight. Earlier tonight, we met with the Bucks County Children's Advocacy Center, who provided all the Yardley Borough police officers training on how to interview juvenile victims of crimes and the resources they have available to us when we need them. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Manager's report.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Solicitor's report.
I have no report either.
Moving right along, the mayor is not here. Let's move to council member reports. Ms. Siegel Morris.
No report, we have something later on the agenda.
Mr. Ross.
Public Works met earlier, we discussed ongoing projects, everything's moving along great. So we'll have some exciting sidewalk news in the next meeting.
Sounds good. Mr. Curtin.
General government met this evening. Manager Johnson and I will be working on a presentation that she'll make in our meeting, the second meeting in May, on Q1 performance relative to budget. But the punchline is that we've done very well with revenue collection, particularly around real estate transfer taxes, no surprises. And it was a mild winter from a snow perspective, so those things are in our favor.
Good news. Thank you. Mr. McCann.
No report.
Mr. Campbell.
No report this evening.
Mr. Bria. No report. I'll just report that the brainstorming session notes were consolidated and sent to everyone. I'd like everyone to pay special attention in reviewing that to those items that are orphaned. So they've been mentioned in the last comprehensive plan, they'll probably be mentioned again, but they don't really have an owner and how we can keep those things moving in committee. But otherwise, I thought it was a productive session. We will move on now to discussion items. Mr. Curtin, your item.
Yes. So right now, we have a sort of a dormant board that I think we'd like to re-engage.
First, tax collector.
Oh, we're doing tax collector first, and we'll do tax collector. All right, so we've talked about, Cheryl has, stepped in to help us through the transition with Melissa, but she would like us to begin the process of finding a more formal replacement once we get through the busiest part of the cycle, which we're actually getting close to now. So Paul is going to run through the timeline of events, but we're going to be opening up. We've already received some applications for people that are interested in that position, which is great. But there's a procedure that we're going to go through in terms of making sure people understand what they're getting into and what the commitment is and the expectations are before we actually interview and vote to approve her successor. So Paul, you want to just run through the dates?
So as we are April 19th today, we're announcing that we are looking for a permanent tax collector, which will be for the next year and a half. So we're asking newspapers to put a little article in there. We're going to do an email blast. We would like any kind of applications to be submitted by May 23rd. On May 16th, we're going to have a mandatory informational session with Cheryl so that all these folks who want to apply could really see what it's all about, see what's involved with this important position. May 23rd, our applications are due. We're going to start the review process of each applicant, beginning with reference checks and everything else. And then at the June 7th meeting, we anticipate having interviews and the appointment at that meeting. So by May 7th, we could have a new tax collector, which would roll that person right into the school taxes, but it will give her or him a little bit of time to learn, sit with Cheryl. Cheryl's always going to be here. She'll always answer questions. I think school taxes come out in, I want to say it's August.
August, yeah. So it'll hit the timing nice between property kind of rolling through now and then the law before we hit beginning of school.
Right, because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot more than what people anticipate with that job. It is part-time, but it's a lot of work.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this discussion item?
Just wanted to clarify the date. So the mandatory meeting will be on May 16th.
Yes, originally we were going to do another day, but she's
Okay. Applications are due on May 23rd,
correct.
and the interviews and appointments will be on June 7th.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to commend the process that's in place here. I think it shows a lot of respect for how much work goes into this job. And the other side of that, of course, is how screwed up things can become if we have the wrong person in the role. So I don't think we can emphasize that enough, that this is a job, there are audits, it's money that doesn't belong to the person who's in possession of it. So it's very important that we have someone who's organized and is going to understand the rules and regulations and reporting requirements that are involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bria. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we'll move on to other business. Resolution number 22-10, establishing a Board of Appeals. Mr. Curtin.
There we go. Okay, so Board of Appeals exists under the state code, and it's really meant as a second remedy, potential remedy, or place for residents to go when they are unsatisfied with the answer they get when seeking a variance or when receiving notification that they are in violation of a borough ordinance. And so, am I stating that incorrectly?
This is
Yeah,
for
not,
UCC.
variances
This is
tend
the
to be the
UCC.
zoning hearing board.
Bucky,
but
can
this
you
is-
correct me, so I don't want to get this wrong?
Yeah, it's the Uniform Commercial,
Building
Construction
code.
Code, excuse me, Uniform Construction Code. Those issues that pop up, the code enforcement officer finds a problem, issue a violation, then this Board of Appeals would be the first remedy for the, the resident or the business to, try to address that issue.
And the main purpose of the board is, as Bucky said, to help address issues at an earlier stage,
Right.
to prevent problems. And it's meant to be filled by residents who have expertise in this particular areas, right? So, you want to go through?
The construction code.
Yes.
So it's any, like they go for a building permit, they get denied because
Right.
they're putting on a huge addition that needs sprinklers, and the sprinklers are gonna cost $100,000. So they would have to go through this board to get
Yeah,
a variance. so
yeah,
that
if they
didn't have to
disagree
put
with the
this in.
decision in any way, we
It's
can
not a neighbor dispute board,
Right.
this is more construction.
Construction.
construct.
I think another example that was given, when we talked about this earlier, and there's some requirements around when building new properties, putting sidewalks in. But if there's no sidewalks anywhere else in the neighborhood, we often will waive the requirement for someone to put sidewalk just in front of their particular property. This would be a place to discuss, get waiver for those things as well.
And the membership, it has to be people with construction.
Expertise in, yeah, there you go.
Professional certifications,
Yes.
wherever possible.
Yeah, plan reviewers, there are certifications that needed to be had in order to be on this board.
While it's preferred probably to have a borough resident, it's not required.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we do have 3 residents that stepped up and said that they would serve. But if we did not have them, we could go outside the municipality.
If there's no other comment, do I hear a motion to adopt resolution number 22-10, establishing a Board of Appeals?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Motion was made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mr. Campolone. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. So the resolution spells out initial members. Are we establishing terms for those members at this time, or is this sort of until?
It's basically governed by state law that they serve at the pleasure of Borough Council. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions, discussion?
Switch to announce who they are.
Yeah, so it's Rocco Mancini, certified electrician, Tom Wells, residential contractor, and Carl Perella, residential contractor. All right, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next, resolution number 2211, purchase of electronic ticketing device. Ms. Siegel Morris.
Yes, Public Safety is requesting to replace 2 devices that will become unusable at the end of December due to the termination of 3G service that they operate on. I don't think this was planned in the budget, right, Chief? Which is why we're
Correct.
requesting ARPA.
These were gonna be, they're 5-year items, we have them about 4.5 years, they would have been replaced in 2023. However, the shutdown of Verizon 3G will necessitate moving this project up.
And Chief obtained a quote, which is attached to the resolution. For the 2 devices and the subscription for the service.
So what's the spend here? Can you just so everyone's
The
aware?
total cost, I believe, is $9,750. That includes the subscription, right, Chief?
1-year subscription and a 3-year warranty.
Okay.
Thank you. So do I hear a motion to adopt resolution number 2211, purchase of electronic ticketing devices?
So moved.
For,
Is there public comment? Any
Yes, we will
After
have
we get the
discussion
second.
before the vote. Yes. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, so a motion was made by Mr. Ross or Ms. Siegelmark? Mr. Ross?
Mr.
I forgot now. Seconded by Mr. Curtin. Discussion from council first.
Chief, can you go through, just anticipating how these are utilized, the history of the use of these devices by the department?
Yeah, we switched over to electronic ticketing, as did many agencies a few years ago. We did it in March of 2018. We purchased 2 mobile devices. We're one of the few departments that do that because it requires us not to have one in every car. It goes in and out with the officer each time. Most police departments would have 4 devices in this situation and mount them inside the car with an individual printer in each car. Ours are completely handheld and completely independent. And all of the tickets that we write, on the time that we write them, are instantly transmitted to municipal court, to district court. And it cuts down on the amount of time the officer is at the scene, therefore increasing his safety because he's not looking down, copying all the information from the driver's license or registration. He or she is physically scanning those 2 documents, picking the location at the rack, picking a charge, and then issuing the citation. If the person is to receive multiple citations, instead of copying each one down, they just choose 3 or 4 different charges and they all print out. That's basically how these devices work.
And just to repeat again, we were budgeting this for 23. It's moved up to 22 because of changes in cell service.
Yes, ma'am, and they have about a 5-year life expectancy, so we can expect to do this about every 5 years.
So the ones we currently have are no longer working.
They will work until 12/31/22, at which time Verizon will shut the service off.
It's down 3G system.
Other questions from council? Go ahead.
Yeah, quick, this might be something we can handle offline, but I see the resolutions were written up for these to be funded from ARPA, and I just want to make sure that when we go to report, we're making a distinction, is this a direct purchase out of the rescue plan, or are we claiming revenue loss and then buying from the general fund with those proceeds? So it doesn't really make a difference in approving it today, I just want to put a little flag on that to make sure we report correctly.
And I think we could
Thank you,
probably
Mr.
make a
Bria.
case either way with the amount of citation revenue lost during COVID.
Yeah, just we would work with general government to figure out how to bill that. Questions from the public? Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Finally, resolution number 2212, purchase mobile in-car radio. Ms. Siegel Morris.
Okay, I don't seem to have that in front of me. We are asking to purchase a mobile in-car radio to forego the use of the handheld radio that officers are currently using, which increases their safety because the radio is mounted, right? Mike described this because I don't have the paperwork in front of me. And also, thank you, we will be getting a new car, and would that radio be going in the new car, Chief?
Yes.
Okay.
So do I hear a motion to adopt resolution number 2212?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
So motion made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mr. Bria. Discussion from council? Questions?
Can you just say the cost for the record, so it's...
The cost of the radio would be $6,313.06. This is the updated, okay, cost.
And Chief, this typically goes with buying a new car, right? This is typically the cost of...
Generally, we use radios from car to car in the last decades. Right. We have one car without, and this would fill that gap.
Other questions from council?
Yeah, every time we get a car, we don't get in the radio, we
We
transfer.
transfer the other, but this is the one that doesn't have it.
Questions from the public? Yes.
Was this a budgeted item, and if so, what year? Was this next budget?
It's not a budget item, no.
Any other questions from the public?
I'm just curious, are all the cars out all the time? Like, I don't see that many cars out. There's 5 police cars over there?
There's 5 police cars.
Are they are they out all the time during 24 hours a day?
No, not all 5 cars are used 24 hours a day. At times, 5 cars are used, and other times 4 cars are used, sometimes 3 and 2 and 1.
Yeah, I guess on a week, I would think on weekends when it's busy, right?
For special events, you'll normally see all 5 cars, but on a given weekday, we might have 3 officers in court, and one in Doylestown, 2 at the district court in Morris, and a car at the school.
So it sounds like this is really twofold. We're having a radio for a car that didn't have one, and we are moving towards, away from radios that are becoming obsolete.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The executive session that was on the agenda for this evening will not be taking place, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.